Hello and welcome to True North EV. My name is James. I'm your host today. Uh, I guess I'm always your host. But today we're diving into a topic that many of you have been asking about: the used EV market in Canada. As more Canadians switch their vehicle to electric, the secondhand market is really heating up. We're going to cover today some smart buying strategies, what to expect with depreciation, and I'll share some hidden gems you might want to consider for your next EV purchase. But before we get started, I want to remind you that you can connect with Manitoba Electric Vehicle Association at manitobaev.ca. They're doing fantastic work promoting EV adoption across the province. You can also find us on Facebook at True North EV or shoot us an email at truenorthevpodcast@gmail.com with your questions or suggestions for future episodes. Now, let's start with the Canadian used EV landscape. So, the landscape has changed dramatically over the past few years. When I bought my first EV back in 2019, Hyundai Kona Electric, finding a decent used electric vehicle was like hunting for a unicorn. Basically had Tesla as your only choice, and the price was fairly high. Now we're seeing more options hit the market as early adopters upgrade and lease returns become available. What's unique about our situation in Canada compared to our friends south of the border? First, our climate considerations are significant. Battery performance in our winter conditions is a major factor that affects both range and long term battery health. This means that vehicles with robust thermal management systems tend to hold their value best here. So that's going to be vehicles that can control whether the battery's warm or hot in the summer and winter. Second, we have a more limited selection. While the US markets have been flooded with EVs from manufacturers like Tesla, Chevrolet, Nissan, and newer players, our Canadian inventory has been somewhat smaller, creating what economists would call a seller's market in many provinces. Third, provincial incentives have played a huge role in the used market. Provinces like Quebec and British Columbia that offered generous EV incentives years ago now have more robust used markets, while provinces without those early incentives are still playing catch up. Current data shows that used EV prices in Canada dropped about 15 to 20% in the past year alone, making this potentially the best time to jump into electric driving without paying the new car premium. But remember, used EVs often come at a lower price point, making electric driving more accessible for many Canadians. And with incentives evolving, sometimes used models can even qualify for rebates or special programs. Like here in Manitoba, you can get up to $2,500 off a qualifying used vehicle. Now, let's talk about what you should be looking for when shopping for a used EV in Canada. The most critical factor in any used EV purchase is battery condition. Unlike conventional cars where you might worry about the transmission problems or engine wear, EVs have relatively simple drivetrains but complex battery systems. Ask for a battery health report. Some dealers will provide this, but there's also other ways of getting the info. You can use apps like Leaf Spy Pro or Torque connected to an OBD2 reader, or you can use devices like the EV OBD2. That's mostly for Hyundais and Kias. I know I had one for my Hyundai Kona, and it's awesome. I really enjoyed that. If you're buying privately, hopefully you can arrange to meet with a full battery and test the displayed range estimate. Better yet, if it's possible, you can take it to an EV specialist mechanic for a pre-purchase inspection. There's becoming a lot more mechanics that specialize in electric vehicles. Kind of the best one that I know is in Airdrie, Alberta, my garage. But I'm noticing even here in Manitoba, there's more. In Winnipeg, there's actually more shops willing to work on EVs or even advertising that they work on EVs. Canadian history verification. Well, EVs require less maintenance. They still need regular service. Look for records of software updates, coolant system checks, brake system maintenance, any battery related warranty claims. This is crucial. Some used EVs are imported from the US. While there's nothing inherently wrong with these imports, they might not have the same cold weather packages or battery thermal management calibrations as Canadian models. So, depending on where you're at, especially prairie provinces, we get cold weather. Cars that are just from California might struggle a little more. So, get a Carfax or similar vehicle history report to confirm where the vehicle has spent most of its life. A car from Minnesota will likely handle our winters better than one from California. Most EVs come with separate warranties for the vehicle and the battery. Find out exactly what coverage remains. Many manufacturers offer 8-year, 160,000 kilometer battery warranties, so a 4-year-old EV still might have significant battery coverage left. You also want to check for charging equipment. Check what comes with the car. Does it include both level 1 standard outlet or level 2 and level 2 charging cables? So that's going to be for your 1450 or even TT30 or whatnot, different plugs. If not, factor in the cost of purchasing those separately. A good level 2 charger can run $500 to $1,000 plus installation. Also check the charging compatibility. Ensure the used EV supports the charging standards used in your area, whether it's level 1, level 2 home charging, or fast charging stations along highways. For example, many newer models come with the CCS or CHAdeMO connectors, and now NACS is becoming more common, but also making sure, like my Tesla Model X, I got it updated and changed out some of the hardware so that it can plug into Tesla superchargers, or I got an adapter for CCS. And now you got a lot of these newer vehicles that are coming that are a CCS connector on the vehicle, but can charge on Tesla supercharger. So making sure that any of that charging equipment is either with the vehicle or factoring that into your costs. Remember, older EVs might have less range than new ones. Focus on models that still meet your daily needs. For instance, a Nissan Leaf from 2018 might have around 150 to 200 kilometer range, which is great for the city driving, or if you're like here in Manitoba, especially around Winnipeg, there's a lot of smaller communities just outside of Winnipeg. You got Dugald, Oakbank, Neverville even, where that might be fine as a daily driver vehicle running from there to Winnipeg and back. So yeah, just factor in if your needs require more, just make sure that you're buying the right vehicle. Look for signs of wear, rust, or damage, especially in colder climates like Manitoba or Ontario. Check for corrosion or battery-related issues caused by harsh winters. I know a lot. I don't know how it is now. I remember when I worked at dealerships back, going on 15 years ago or more. There was a whole thing of not wanting vehicles from out east, like in the Atlantic provinces, just because of their high salt on the roads. So if you get a vehicle from there, just look for rust issues. And yeah, it might have rust and you might be okay with it. I know my Nissan Leaf has some rust and I'm fine with it. It's a little beater vehicle. It's awesome. I love it. Always take the vehicle for a test drive. Pay attention to how it accelerates, brakes, and handles. Listen for any unusual noises and test all features. It's easier to try to negotiate something that you know is broken rather than trying to get reimbursed for finding out later that something's not working properly. For our Canadian climate, look for models with possibly the heat pumps rather than resistive heating. Just the heat pumps are going to be more efficient in the winter, but if you don't drive long distances in the winter, maybe it doesn't matter as much. And battery precondition capabilities. As far as I can tell, majority of vehicles have it. So the other thing with that, I would say learn how to use it. I found out basically middle of winter that my 2014 Nissan Leaf had it and how to actually get it all set up. So I'd say find out before winter starts on how to set it all up and get it going before winter starts and you really want it. Now, let's talk dollars and cents. How do EVs depreciate compared to gas vehicles? The good news is that the rapid depreciation we saw in early EVs has stabilized. In fact, some models are holding the value remarkably well. The average gas vehicle loses about 50% of its value in the first 5 years. EVs used to depreciate faster, but that trend is changing. Here's what we're seeing. Premium EVs like the Model 3 and Y are depreciating at about 35 to 40% over 5 years. Right now, actually, it might be more than that. It's been a rough year for them. Mid-range EVs like the Hyundai Kona Electric, Kia Niro EV are seeing about 45 to 50% depreciation over 5 years. And first-generation EVs with shorter ranges like the early Nissan Leafs continue to depreciate more steeply, often losing about 60 to 70% of their value in 5 years. So great if you're buying, not so great if you're selling. Several factors unique to our market affect how EVs hold their values. So you got the winter range impact. Models with poor cold weather performance tend to depreciate faster in our market. You got the charging infrastructure. EVs hold their value better in areas with robust charging networks like BC, Quebec, even southern Ontario, compared to areas with less infrastructure. Technology advances. Newer models with significantly better range can accelerate depreciation of older models. Incentive history. Provinces that had generous incentives saw lower initial net prices, which affects perceived depreciation rates. So something that gets $10,000 off, let's say, right at the beginning, people then will immediately look at, that $100,000 vehicle that you got now for $90,000, that it basically started at $90,000. So it kind of lowers the price right then and there type deal. Right now, the best value proposition appears to be 3 to 4 year old EVs coming off lease. These vehicles have already taken their steepest depreciation hit, still retain about 85 to 90% of their battery, if not more. Often have remaining battery warranty, include features like DC fast charging capability, and provide 80 to 90% of the experience of a new EV at 50 to 60% of the price. Now, for the fun part, let's talk about some underappreciated models that represent exceptional value in our used market. You have the Kia Soul EV. Awesome looking car. This boxy compact crossover doesn't get the attention it deserves. The 2018-2019 models offer around 150 to 170 kilometers of real-world range. So great commuter car. Excellent cold weather performance for its class. Surprisingly spacious interior. And it's available about 18 to 22 grand that's going across Canada type deal. And it has a robust battery thermal management that has proven reliable in our winters. Next one on my list I have is the Volkswagen e-Golf 2017 to 2019. E-Golf flies under the radar but offers familiar golf quality and driving dynamics. So if you're a Volkswagen Golf person, this might be a great vehicle for you. They have about 150 to 170 kilometers of range, German engineering with excellent build quality, currently about 20 to 24,000, and a devoted following that helps maintain resale value. You don't see too many of them go up on the Auto Trader or Kijiji much. Then you got the Chevy Bolt. Despite some negative press about battery recalls, which resulted in many older ones getting brand new battery packs under warranty, the Bolt represents incredible value. 350 plus kilometer range even in older models, Spacious interior despite compact footprint. Fast charging capabilities, although I believe it tops out at 50 kilowatts. That might have changed for newer ones. Post recall models essentially have brand new batteries, and they're about 20 to 28,000 depending on year and condition. Next great one, the original Hyundai Ioniq Electric 2018-2019 years, the efficiency champion that deserves more attention. Most efficient EV of its generation, 200 plus kilometer range on a small battery pack. I believe those were only 40-50 kilowatt battery packs. Conventional styling appeals to those who don't want to broadcast their EV status. It looks just like a normal vehicle. They're about 20 to 25,000, and they most right in that year will still have some battery warranty on them. Now we're going to move into the Model 3 standard range, 2018 to 2020, so not quite the original Model 3s. If your budget allows, early Model 3s are becoming more accessible. They're about 350 to 400 kilometer range. You get access to the supercharger network. You get regular software updates, so it keeps it feeling fresh. They're probably starting to slow down a bit, but you get way more regular updates. And they're about 35 to 45,000, but that seems to be dropping really quickly. And for the great budget pick, the first generation Nissan Leafs, about, 2013 to 2017. If you need a pure city runabout and have a smaller budget, the Nissan Leafs can be found for, I'm now starting to see them even less than $10,000, up to about 15 grand. Have about 100 to 130 kilometers during the summer. Winter's going to be about half-ish, depending on how cold it is. It's perfect as a second car or a city commuter. Caution, the lack of active battery cooling means Canadian buyers should check battery health carefully, especially if you're getting a vehicle from some of the hotter states like Arizona. Even here in Manitoba, we do get fairly hot summers. It's the heat that does a lot more damage to the battery than the cold. Now for some hidden gems. These might not be the most talked about models, but can be excellent choices. You got the Chevy Spark EV, a small, affordable EV with decent range and good city handling. It's a rare find now, but perfect for the city urban commuting. Mitsubishi i-MiEV, one of the earliest electric cars available in Canada. It's compact, reliable, and affordable, though it's more suited for short trips. We got a number of them in Manitoba Electric Vehicle Association. They're just awesome cars. They take a beating. They're just fun looking. Like I love them. The older Tesla models, like the Model S, Model 3, even bigger ones like the Model X, while more expensive, Tesla tends to hold their value well and have extensive supercharging networks. Look for earlier models that are well maintained. Also, earlier Model S's and X's, you might even be able to find with still free unlimited supercharging and the free internet. The internet side of it, things, you might want to upgrade the computers, but it's still a free option, some of the perks of the older vehicles. But if you do look at them from a Tesla dealership, or if they've been through Tesla, then those will probably be taken off, or at least the free supercharging would be usually taken off. The used EV experience varies significantly across our massive country, so let's break down some regional considerations. BC has the most developed EV market in Canada, followed closely by Quebec, but in BC you get more selection, particularly in the lower mainland, so Vancouver area. Higher prices due to sustained demand. better charging infrastructure makes older, shorter range EVs more practical. Strong provincial incentives have created a rich used market. Now, with the higher prices, you also have a lot more, though. So you can sometimes, and I know people that have, sometimes find that diamond, basically, and low cost, maybe higher mileage, but great shape vehicle that might be worth it to go to BC and get. Quebec is another EV-friendly province with extensive charging networks, including the electric circuit. Early adoption incentives created good used inventory, and the cold winter testing means Quebec-owned EVs often have well-maintained battery thermal systems. Ontario. The market is growing quickly with wide price variations between the GTA and more rural areas. Good supply of off-lease vehicles from fleet and business users, which means costs are probably fairly low if it's a fleet vehicle. And former incentives created a bubble of 3 to 5 year old vehicles now hitting the market. Prairie provinces. Our markets are here has unique characteristics. Smaller selection, but often better deals due to less demand. Cold weather performance is crucial. Look for models with proven winter capability. Longer average commuting distance make range more important. Growing charging networks are making EV ownership more practical. Especially, I'm finding Saskatchewan and Alberta seem to be going quite nicely with their charging networks. We're still working. I'm hearing great stories coming out the northern part of Manitoba. Hopefully should be getting some nice chargers going in shortly, but yeah. The easternmost provinces, Atlantic Canada, they're seeing emerging used EV market with growing selection. Coast of concerns about salt exposure, so make sure to check the undercarriage, kind of check for rust carefully. Range considerations for longer intercity travel and the growing charging infrastructure make longer trips more feasible. So to wrap up, here are some Canadian-specific resources. Check the Manitoba Electric Vehicle Association at manitobaev.ca for local tips and events. Reach out to them for owners of the actual vehicles without the sales pressure. Find out the good, the bad, right? And that goes for any province. Every province now has kind of their own EV owners group. Reach out to them. Get the real owner experiences on vehicles that you're looking at. You might be surprised at how helpful that can be. Use apps like PlugShare to find charging stations and see real-world range reports. A better route planner, you could also plug an OBD2 dongle in and hook up to your phone and actually get real current range updates. And stay updated on federal and provincial incentives, which can make a used EV even more affordable. And my final tip, always do your homework. Buying used can save you money, but it's worth investing time to ensure you're getting a reliable vehicle that fits your lifestyle. Well, there you have it, your guide to navigating the used EV market in Canada. Let's recap some of the key points to remember. Battery health is the most important factor. Get it professionally checked if possible. Canadian market vehicles may have advantages over U.S. imports for our climate. The sweet spot for value is currently 3 to 4 year old models coming off lease. Consider some of the hidden gems we discussed that offer exceptional value. And regional factors affect both selection and pricing across provinces. So if you're willing to go to another province to get what you want, that's awesome. And keep that in mind. I'd love to hear about your used EV shopping experience or questions. Drop us a line at truenorthevpodcast@gmail.com. Find us on Facebook at True North EV, or check out the resources available through the Manitoba Electric Vehicle Association at manitobaev.ca. And before you go, if you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and leave us a review. It really helps other EV enthusiasts find our show. And if you have a topic you'd like us to cover, send us your suggestion. This show is for you guys. It's also for me a bit, but I love to share any helpful advice and just the EV experience. Thanks for listening to True North EV. I'm James, and we'll talk to you next time.